career in tech, even if you don't use tech in your everyday work, in your studying, it's important you understand tech because everybody around you is going to be using it. And the only way to protect yourself is to have a foundational understanding. Not all of the products that our teams here today have built will necessarily be tech products. It's important to understand that not a lot of you will actually really need to use AI. But as you go through the process of building a business, a product, a service, as you go through your entrepreneurial journey, you will encounter a lot of tech. And the best way to protect yourself, the best way to make the most of it, the best way to really optimize it is to just at least have a foundational understanding. So that's what I'm hoping to be able to do today, is to talk to you about AI, to get some basics right, to get some sense of what it really means, because we're hearing a lot of it today. And I don't know how many of us really know what AI is. I don't know how many of us know how it's built. I don't know how many know how it works, what it really does, why is it different from other tech. So I'm just hoping that today, when we close the session, you have a fairly good idea of what it means to be building a business in an AI world and how you can best use it. So with that, I do want to put the guardrail out, and I always say this at the beginning and the end of every session, that don't use AI for AI's sake. Don't build AI for AI's sake. Shall tackle point one, where should the data go. A great resource for everybody is go read our data laws. The country's data laws are very, very important. There's something called the DPDP Act. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about it. Even if you're not familiar with it, you will have heard about it in the news or in conversations around you. So our data privacy, data processing laws are some of the most strict in the world. They are quite robust and they apply to everyone. They even apply to you and me in this conversation right now. There has to be informed consent and a full understanding of any situation where data is being used. So for instance, if we are in this meeting and I haven't consented, did you all see when we logged on to Zoom that this meeting's being recorded and you had to say okay? That is a data law, data practice in effect. So if I didn't say okay, which obviously in this case I can't opt out of, but once I've said okay, this information, my face, this recording, I am essentially consenting to my data within this context being used. DPDP applies to everyone. DPDP is different for different sectors, for minors, for adults, for different kinds of businesses, different kinds of institutions. So when you ask where should the data go, we have data fiduciaries, we have data processors. There are actual roles the government has put together on there's a data principal, which is the person, the individual, the entity that the data is about. There's a data processor, there is a data fiduciary, an entity that holds the data and is authorized to hold the data, an entity that uses the data and is authorized to analyze and apply the data. There are time limits put on it. So irrespective of the field you are in, irrespective of whether or not you want to use AI, DPDP is something I tell everybody to read. Even as a casual citizen who's doing nothing with that knowledge actively, even something as basic as taking a photo while you're walking around in your neighborhood and accidentally taking a photo of a minor and then sharing that photo somewhere brings you under the preview of DPDP. So DPDP is something I will tell everybody to always read about. Uh, it will tell you where should the data go, how it can be held, what are the ways in which it can be used, what are the limiters on data, who can access the data within an organization. There is a role-based access system that is put in, and entities, organizations, institutions have to comply with those to be able to actually be legally compliant with the government's laws. So if you're all school students, for example, there is a process in which your school is allowed to hold your data and nominate you for these workshops and these webinars, but it gets that consent from your parents. About information about you. It can't share it with just anybody. It's as simple as you being in this webinar right now is an exercise where DPDP is in effect. So I will always tell everyone, please read. It gives you a lot of information on how to protect yourself, how to not make mistakes. A lot of founders make a lot of data mistakes, and the fines are very, very heavy, and rightly so. So it's the first thing. If you remember, there's a last line I put in: get familiar with the laws and compliances, because when you're running a business, you have to be legally 100%. If an event is flagged at 92% dangerous, this is a question of probability. It has looked at as much data as it could, which it thinks, again, I'm using thinks as relevant. And it's extrapolating. Extrapolating is getting lots of different similarly linked sort of information and coming to a conclusion. Is it likely that if it flags it as 92% risk, 92% dangerous? Sure, it's processing more information than you are. But what's the context? So is if you're in the defense space, where I said we have a human in the loop prerequisite. So if I get a 92% risk reading for something in my sector, it will immediately go up the ranks to a senior officer. And then the senior officer will make a decision on whether it's dangerous or not. And what does dangerous mean? Is it an immediate danger? Is it an, likely danger? Does the danger mean physical danger, or does it mean structural damage, or does it mean data loss? So depending on the sector you're in, a human in the loop sort of problem, a human in the loop prerequisite is something that we work with. This is exactly why I say that AI is not going to replace us, because that decision on whether it's really dangerous and it's not is at the end of the day going to be us. Today, if you give a bunch of symptoms to AI, it can tell you anything from you are in the peak of, pink of health versus you have only 30 minutes left to live. But at the end of the day, only a doctor is going to be able to tell you really where your health is at. Today, so many people will be uploading their medical reports, and the likelihood of the interpretations is pretty high. The accuracy is pretty high because of the kind of data it has access to. But unless and until a doctor tells you that, well, this is the final diagnosis and these are the medicines, you don't know how bad it is, right? So it really depends on the application you're putting it into. When we talk about AI, we talk about some sort of futuristic, almost unfathomable, mysterious kind of tech. But what's important to understand is that a lot of AI has existed for a very, very long time. We've just recently started calling it AI, right? So when we talk about AI, why is everyone talking about AI now? What's the excitement about AI now? So the little figure on the right is, Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator, and that was our first real on-screen portrayal of an artificial intelligence, right? So I talk about the fact that AI has been around forever. Dinuji and I were having a conversation recently about how we've even got AI washing machines, and I was also in Chroma recently and I looked at AI laundry and I didn't understand the point of that. Why did your laundry need to be intelligent, or why did whatever is doing your laundry need to be intelligent? So it's become something of a buzzword. You can't turn a screen, or turn a corner without seeing AI written somewhere. But why is it such a big deal today? Everybody wants to be AI powered. Everybody wants to have an AI product. Everybody wants to invest in AI products that have nothing to do with AI, as those of us in the tech space really understand it, are being called AI products. And this is all really about two things. One, it's a business trend. And two, it's not that AI hasn't existed before. It's that it's now suddenly become very accessible, very visible. Now it's become something of a trend simply because there's a lot of pressure from consumers, from investors, from competitors. As soon as something catches on and everybody is doing it, then anyone who's not doing it has, the fear of missing out, and suddenly everything's all AI. Consumers want AI because they think it's suddenly going to make life more convenient. There's this idea of being part of a future wave. There's the novelty of purchasing something new. So an AI washing machine really is going to be very little different from your regular good old fashioned washing machine. But the idea that you've gone out and bought something AI, there's a little bit of customer satisfaction. So suddenly businesses, everybody everywhere are now talking so much about AI. There's media amplification about AI. The few success stories that truly create new tech end up being so revolutionary and so exciting and so impressive that everybody thinks that they've got to be a part of that change, right? So every time that you hear about AI or you read about AI or you see a label about AI, I want you to ask yourself, what exactly is the AI here doing? What is it doing that basic mechanics wasn't doing, or what is it doing that electronic work wasn't doing? I want you to ask, where is the difference between what it was plus AI now? And if you can't really ask, if you can't really answer a particular new additional feature, then it's not really AI. Then it's not really AI as it's being touted today. It's more tech, modern tech, better tech, but it's not intelligent. It's not tech that is thinking for itself. It's not tech that is doing some kind of work that does not involve your input. So ask yourself always, what's happened to XYZ thing as soon as AI has been added to the mix? How you use the AI. If you are using the AI to think for you, to brainstorm for you, then it's going to only remain a tool. And it should only remain a tool because essentially you're just making your job easier, you know. Uh, and how much can it think that you can't? Ask yourself, give yourself credit. You're a lot smarter and a lot more intelligent than it is. If you are using it as a tool to process information at a large enough scale to actually tackle a climate problem, so for example a waste management app or a consumption app, uh, then it will help for sure. The question on where the original lens with which you began, where it's got a good side and a bad side, is I think the kind of primary ethical issue we have with everything. And I'll give you a different kind of example. We all know that when we're unwell and usually when we have infections, we get prescribed antibiotics. The benefit of taking the antibiotic is obviously to help you with your infection, to help you with inflammation. The negative impact of the antibiotic is also something that there's a lot of discussion about, that it has a hard impact on the body. Now, are you going to take it and feel better and maybe probably cure your problem quickly, or are you going to continue as is and prevent a future risk? There is no right answer, there is no wrong answer. It depends on how big is the problem right now and how is the AI coming in or how is the tech coming in. So if I was able to deploy 100 people at every single waste management facility in the country, and they would be able to quickly understand, analyze, report, and inform, then I would argue that maybe that's better than AI. That way, I'm creating employment, I'm generating jobs, I'm solving the problem while helping humans. But is that doable? No. Is that likely to happen? No. But the waste management problem is going to keep growing. So somebody, something, somewhere needs to be analyzing that data. So am I going to choose not to do anything about it, or am I going to solve the problem that really is a very pressing problem, especially in a country like ours? So it really comes down to, is it for the good, greater good? Is the greater good to be felt in the immediate short term, the long term? What is the cost of it? Those are questions we all have to ask ourselves. And that is why, even though when we talk about ethics and philosophies of AI, as founders, we kind of think about that secondary. I want to look at the function of it, right? But that is the question, because today a problem that you're solving is going to create a problem tomorrow for another founder, to be solving. And that's a cycle we keep going. Those are questions we all have to ask ourselves. I will give you the general advice of don't use AI in the form of AI that you know it right now to be. So chat GPT and generators and all of that, but do know that a lot of AI has existed. A lot of that conversation on data centers today using up a lot of resources is for this sort of inter-exchange communicative AI that we are all dealing with. We've had artificial intelligence that has been doing a lot of work for decades now and does not have the same negative impact. And a lot of business operational product concerns of yours will probably be solved with more conventional AI rather than chat GPT AI. You know, today's AI versus yesterday's AI. Yesterday's AI can do a good enough job. Today's AI can have a conversation with you while doing it. So you have to make a choice on what's more applicable in your space. There's nothing any of us can do about the development of tech in terms of slowing it down, right? So where we can come in and where we can make good, powerful, impactful, ethical, and efficient, and smart, and business oriented choices is how do we choose to be part of that change, right? Like I started this by saying that I was one of those people who just would not use WhatsApp, would not use Paytm. In fact, I started using it very recently. I went through COVID without Paytm, which was a point in time when where cash exchange, notes, handing things was not allowed. So I used to have a friend who used to live nearby, and I used to drag her out with me, and she would pay for everything, and then I would give her cash. I was that stubborn about it. Did my resisting a payment transaction platform stop it? No. It's one of the biggest in the world. What can I be a part of? I can be a part of responsible data, responsible financial choices, educating people about financial data literacy, educating people about cybersecurity. So, resisting change, if it's really not doing any harm by itself, in its most neutral form, AI and most technology is not harmful. It's how we use it that decides whether it's good or it's bad. The demand for it is so great in a very realistic way that nothing is going to stop AI. Nothing is going to stop tech. What's going to stop is the harmful way it's being used if you and I and all of us figure out better, more responsible, more ethical ways of doing it. So, for example, my specialization is in responsible AI in the military domain. Now, the military domain is something that, and where AI comes in, a lot of it is logistics and operational, but honestly, a lot of it is battlefield, related. And that's immediately a violent and a dramatic and a, very hardcore application of AI. When people hear about the kind of things that I build, and interestingly, I build a lot of games to help military people figure out what their decisions would do in the field, so we have gamified institutionalized learning that way. So when I talk about that and I talk about responsible and ethical military AI, people are like, those two things seem like they're not related, right? But where they are related is we are building systems which can't take decisions until a senior officer who has been given the credentials, who has the relevant field experience, and has been educated in AI is brought in to make that decision, right? I could have either said, hey, I'm not going to be a part of this, and that tech would have continued without me. Or I could have said, okay, let it do whatever, and maybe someone less responsible than me or less, say, sensitive to tech than me would have come in and made those decisions. So if in a space as high stakes where the risk is so great and so obvious, if there is space for responsible and ethical development, then there is space across industries, there is space across sectors. You can have conversations about, if you are building a climate solution, what's the best way to do it, how would you do it manually, what are the functions you can do manually that you can now do with a machine, not an AI machine, not a computer, not thinking intelligence, but what can you do with a calculator, what can you do with a power plant, what can you do with so today it's a question of asking, are you going to use a hammer or are you going to use a drill, but At the end of the day, you have to use something. So the more ethically you are inclined, the less harm will happen in the world. At the end of the day, we're all consumers. It's on us to make the choices that we want to. I don't know if that satisfies you as an answer, but you will have to. I can't say on the whole if it's good for the world or if it's bad for the world. I mean, I give everybody the example of things that are happening in other sectors. So much of what we use as basic healthcare and medicine for the last so many decades is now dangerous, right? Or we found new information. More people die in road accidents than in anything else. Are we going to stop traveling? Are we going to stop using transport? But can we drive safer? Yes, we can.